Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Irfan Syahmi bin Lakara Rapahimi and I was interned at Serasi Ventures Sdn Bhd. First of all, I will tell you about the company background. The company registered name is Serasi Ventures Sdn Bhd. The company registered number is 313851U. The date of incorporation is 30 August 1994. The company address is PT 457 tingkat 1 Jalan Jabatan Sultan Yahya, Lembah Sirih 15050, Kota Baru, Kelantan. The current project is membina jabatan baru menentasi Sungai Korbu ke Kampung Kenang dan lain-lain kerja berkaitan di daerah Sungai Siput Perak. Okay, let's go to weekly summary. First, we have the tensile test for steel. This test help to determine tensile strength, yield strength, ductility, and reduction of area. This test is one of the most common tests for steel in order to follow the specification of steel from the JKR. Then, the construction is undergoing the bulk pile stage, which is the drilling process. This process will take 2 or 3 days to finish. After finish this process, we install the permanent casing. After we install the permanent casing, we install the rebar cage into the 30-meter drill hole. We also install the pipe of sonic logging test and also the Y-jack test at a rebar cage. After all done, we will do the concreting part. When the concrete mixer truck arrives, a slump test is made at the site in order to measure the consistency of fresh concrete before it sets. This slump test must be shown between 1 to 5 mm to 175 mm. After that, we will do the concrete cube for compression test. We will perform a test at 7 days and 28 days in order to make sure the concrete is achieve the requirement needed. After 28 days, concrete the bulk pile, we will do 3 tests on the bulk pile. First, the Y-jack test being operated. Usually for the pile load test, they will use maintain load test MLT, but for this project, we will use the bidirectional pile load test, which are known as Y-jack test. Preparation for the test take 2 hours before we can start the test. The duration for this test is 25 hours. In this test, we had installed 2 jack machines in the bulk pile which are at the top and toe of pile. In this test, we have data reader, control box, seat sensor, pump jack machine, and lastly, pressure gauge. The advantage of this test rather than MLT. First, the time taken. The test is easy to prepare and only take 25 hours to finish the test, while the MLT is taking more time to prepare and test, which are usually to take 4 days to finish. Next, the cost of Y-jack test is lesser than MLT. Then, the space for the test. The Y-jack tests are using small space than MLT, which are using more space to place all the equipment and the rock. And last but not least, the reading of Y-jack test is more accurate than MLT. This is because Y-jack test put 2 jack machine at the top and toe of pile. So reading will take at the top and toe of pile, while MLT only just maintain the load on the pile and the reading will take on the toe of pile only. After the Y-jack test is done, the sonic logging test is conducted. The sonic logging test is the most accurate and reliable technique for assessing the integrity of deep foundation elements, such as newly placed concrete drill shaft and slurry walls, particularly when drilling below groundwater level. The purpose of this test is to determine quality of concrete for deep pile and identify the defect location based on ultrasonic pulse velocity. The advantage of sonic logging test determines the size, shape, severity, nature and location of anomalies in the concrete foundation. Multiple defects are identified and located. The method is quick and safe. It can be performed within 5 minutes. After the sonic logging test, we will do the pile driving analyzer (PDA) test for both pile. The dynamic load testing using pile driving analyzer equipment is a high-strain, non-destructive load test method. This test can be performed during or after pile installation using conventional pile driving equipment. The purpose of this test is to assess the capacity of several piles in a single day. It also to determine the strength of the pile. Next, we have the bar cutting and bar bending work. They using the bar cutting machine and the bar bending machine to cut and bend the bar reinforcement. As for today, they were cutting and bending the bar. These bars were made for the bar reinforcement at abutment. Then they prepare the formwork. Formwork is for the process of creating a temporary mold into which concrete is poured and formed. There are many types of formwork. So, for this project, they use the traditional timber formwork for their formwork types. The formwork is built on site out of timber and plywood size 2x3. It is easy to produce on site. The disadvantage is the time consuming for larger structure, and the other of disadvantage is the plywood facing has a relatively short lifespan. Next, the temporary retaining wall. They use the sandbag to make the temporary retaining wall at the site. The function of this retaining wall to make sure that there are not any things from the site to enter the river. So, this can help the contractor to take care the environment of project, especially the river. The water pollution can be reduced with this way. They also installing slip fence at site. They're using the clothes and put at the side of the site. The purpose of installing slip fence is in order to make sure that there are not any soil, rocks or any debris from entering the river. Next, they're starting the installation steel for abutment. By following the drawing, they install the steel for abutment before they are concreting the abutment. The surveyor had marked before the steel work start in order to make sure the steel installed correctly following the drawing. Last but not least, they continue the installation of steel for abutment. By following the drawing, they install the steel for abutment before they are concreting the abutment. Safety is one of very important in the construction building of bridge. In our country, there are many rules that must be applied at site to make sure the numbers of accidents during construction can be reduced. The workers always wearing gloves, safety boot and safety helmet during the construction. They are also wearing goggles when cutting steel or wood. For now, with the pandemic situation, there are many SOP at their side in order to make sure there are no new clusters from our side. All the workers and staff must be fully vaccinated or at least partially vaccinated before they work at site. Every day they will check in their My Sejahtera and check their body temperature before enter the site. They also always wearing the face mask every week. They will sanitize the site office. All these steps are to prevent the COVID-19 from our side. Next, the sustainable technology at our Serasi Venture Sidirahan Berhad. We have the bi-directional pilot test for the pilot test to replace maintain load test MLT. This test is known as YJEC test. There are many advantages of this test rather than MLT for the company. First, they can cut off the time taken, and then they can cut off the cost of the test. Next, the YJEC tests are using small space than MLT, which are using small space to place all the equipment and the rock. And last but not least, the reading of YJEC test is more accurate than MLT. For the recommendation, we need to expand the use of YJEC test in our construction that have test of pi, since it brings more advantage to the company and environment as well as to the community. For the conclusion, throughout my industrial training at Serasi Venture Sidirahan Berhad, I had learned many things that required my skill to understand it more. This program brings the actual situation to me on site. How, as an engineer, need to handle encounter when their project have problems, such as materials not arrive on time. I had learned how to calculate the bill of quantity, the real situation at site, and the plan and the design of bridge. I also learned how to handle with client and workers, also subcontractor at site. The experience that I got make me more understand what I learned on class, and also I can prepare myself to face working world after graduate. Thank you.